Good morning, Patrick.
Morning, Jonah.
Nice Georgian forest in your
Yeah,
background.
exactly. It looks like I live in a cabin in the woods. It's pretty funny. But I can hear the traffic of Scott Boulevard in the background, where everyone's off to work here at Decatur. A lot of them headed to some version of Emory University. The CDC, the United States, is down here, their main center. Yeah, greetings to everyone from Atlanta.
Yeah, from the south. Yeah, and welcome everyone to another episode of The Light in Everything.
It's a place where we seek to have a genuine conversation on the mysteries of Christianity. We start each time with a gospel reading from chapter 8 of the Gospel of John, a one line, verse 12. Again, Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life.
Yeah, well, I woke up this morning thinking, oh, what did we talk about last time? And it all came flooding back that we were really through your questioning, and we were really working with this mystery of the nature of the I, the ego, the self, and how this self actually, in the mysteries of Christianity, the pictures that Rudolf Steiner has brought, and also that exist in the gospel, that the self itself, the I itself, has been infected with a sickness. And that sickness is then challenged by the adversaries, but also begins to be healed by some of the pictures in and through some of the pictures of the gospel that we're working with, particularly this picture where part of ourself, pictured in the child born out of the woman from the Apocalypse chapter 12, is lifted up into the heavens. And that true self, that core self, is actually protected. But our self, our ego itself, our I itself, is actually split in two, and part of ourself remains as offspring of the woman, fleeing and trying to be protected from the dragon who's flooded our existence with water. It says water out of his mouth, and that the earthly selves, the offspring of the woman, are protected by those are following God's commandments and bearing witness to Jesus. So we had this picture of the self is actually, this is showing that the self is actually split in two to be protected on the one hand, but also then the lower self, or the earthly incarnated self, the one that says yes and no, the one that I'm conscious of, is also charged with a way of protection against the
Right.
adversary.
Yeah. There was a third
Yeah,
thing we
please.
found too of the
Yeah.
protection. We had to go a little bit back in the text at the moment when Michael had been victorious in the heavenly world
Mm.
and cast the dragon down. And the writer of the Apocalypse then speaks of how there are people on earth who are going to have to face the dragon. Now the dragon's going to turn on you, but these ones, the faithful circle, are also those who did not love their lives so much, even unto death. Like they were ready to lose themselves for the sake of truth, for the sake of the divine. So to lose the earthly self that's ready to die becomes a self that protects itself. This amazing deep paradox. The moment I become ready to die for something greater than me, actually my earthly ego starts to participate in a divine reality.
Well said. I like that. When my earthly self decides to give itself for something greater than itself, I start to participate in a divine protection.
Not an earthly protection.
Not an earthly. So
That's what's in there, yeah.
that's a good distinction. Like, this isn't saying you're going to be protected from biological death or illness or famine or no money in your bank account. This isn't those things in the light of this protection are actually opportunities, sufferings that can lead to a dying for something greater. So there are
Yes.
even doorways in that sense.
Yeah.
So the true protection, I love that third element, the true protection then for the ego that you could say we're most in touch with consciously, the earthly offspring, has following God's commandments, loving something greater than yourself, more than your own life, and constantly bearing witness to Jesus.
Yeah.
Anything else that's key to just touch on from our last conversation?
Well, I think the interpretation that struck me deeply through the conversation was, what is this water that's coming from the dragon? And we looked at, who is this being um, who seeks its life to maintain and nourish its life by devouring the child of the woman? So this devourer, it's a very horrific revelation of a self with seven heads, seven crowns. So if you have one head, you're pretty smart. If you have seven heads, you've got super intelligence and the crowns to prove it. Yeah, they have a royal selfhood is always connected to kingship. So it's this super intelligent. It's a heavenly being. So it knows the upper worlds, but its life, its nourishment, the way it seeks to live is by devouring the child who's the true king, who's destined to rule, it says, right? So there is a self that hates the rightful self and that wants to live by devouring the true self, to eat its life, which is revealed also in the gospel version that Matthew tells, right? At the birth of the true king in the Gospel of Matthew, we hear about three kings who get it and make their journey to give their gifts to him, and one king, Herod, who's on the throne and through murder and deceit, who's ready to murder children in order to keep his power. People feel this, actually, I think in our time. Like, I don't know, one of the most prevalent conspiracy theories, and I'm going to use that term at the moment, of the feeling of the evil that is happening in the world is that there is a kind of cabal of people who maintain their power through the abuse of children. It's like it had a massive surge in the late 80s and early 90s, and it's known now as the Satanic Panic. It had a very specific kind of dress that it wore during that time. But it's a picture of of true evil that is living off the life of the innocents who have the future in them. And it's a feeling like stuff is happening. All kinds of people like went to jail, like crazy stuff happened, and they investigated and they investigated and they actually it turns out like almost all of it was nothing happened. But the feeling, I think what's happening is actually because people were having images, people were having memories, people were having, I think, projections from that astral or spirit world, which is nearest to us, which come from this dragon being. We're projecting into people's consciousness because there's a feeling there is a self that's surging, that does not want the true self to be the true ruler. And it sustains its life through the destruction of innocent life. It's just, this is an essential part of the Christian mystery to know this, that at the birth of Christ on the earth, the birth of Jesus, there was a self who pictured to us the end road of the earthly self who doesn't bow to its true self.
Mm.
So I'm just trying to, like, egotism at its end, to the end result of it, full consequence of its goal. I will sustain myself through the destruction of the innocent other,
Yeah. At all costs, I will sustain
whatever
myself.
it takes.
Yeah. Right. And I think,
The flood of egotism.
yeah, I think that's really helpful in terms of also touching on another aspect that I just remembered, which is from Rudolf Steiner, who describes the kind of core sicknesses that were given at the beginning of the fall to the
Mm,
ego, which is this egotism, this sense of myself over everything,
myself over everything.
myself over, so that it is possible to constantly, always, no matter what, feel I am the most important. And that was actually given. The I didn't originally have that. The self. The self was actually a breath from God.
Yeah.
But through Lucifer, he said, I'm going to give you a gift that when you dive into the sense world, when you dive into the material, when you dive into your own thinking, feeling, willing, you're not going to drown. You're going to always feel I'm a self. And that feeling of self can move out over everything because there's another piece of over identification. So even in the description you just described, which I thought was really kind of brilliant, that this other evil being, this dragon, is actually creating pictures in the astral plane
Mm.
that I can actually over identify with and think that that has to do with my own, or my own being personally. That's also an issue of the ego,
Hmm.
that that I myself can think I am this bald guy.
Right.
This is me,
The totality of me.
is a power given by Lucifer into the ego, that I can over identify with what is not me and puff up or harden. I've got to say this one thing, because
Okay, yeah. Tell me.
it's just another picture. And I mentioned it before and I got a lot of comments say, "Oh, why don't you say more about that?" Which is this show, K-pop Demon Hunters,
Right.
where the the two main heroine and hero, actually go through a process where their self, hardens in an identity.
Mm.
One of them hardens in, I have no, uh, I'm not a bad person. The other one hardens into, I am a totally condemned person. There's no hope. And part of the main part of the story is how that over identification of linking their I with
Yeah.
that identity is loosened up with help from the other and
Mm,
even loving sacrifice from the other. That's the
beautiful.
climactic
Oh,
moment,
that's so good.
that the other gives the one the eyes to see their whole self, including their shadows, which helps them become more human. And the other one who's condemned themselves is given hope by the other, and
Mm,
later then sacrifices everything, loves something greater more than themselves, and evil is overcome.
yeah.
So I think that's also just a beautiful, even in our popular culture, which, I
Yeah.
mean, that movie is popular. These medicinal impulses that are touching on the sicknesses of our eye are weaving.
Well, yeah, we could go on for days because I mean, if you just think about it, like, I don't know if you've ever seen like the old, like original Superman comics, or even like the song for Spider-Man, like for the early, like, here
But
I come to save the day. And the way the hero and the evil guy were presented in the first half of the 20th century were so simplistic. And I remember I had this moment. It was actually it was a film by a filmmaker from China, from Hong Kong. His name is John Woo. And this started to come into the world through the work of Quentin Tarantino, who was a big fan of his work. And I remember renting his movie as a college student, The Killer. And you're thinking, oh, this is going to be the story about a bad guy, right? Like, that's the name of the movie, The Killer, right? Like, that can't be good. And it's the story of a professional assassin. That's his job in life. He's paid to take people out. And there's no question that that's dark. And it's so masterfully done and so well acted also that you end up identifying with this person who has a job in life, in the world that he exists in, that is really destructive and dark. But in the middle of it, you see there's like a spark of a good that is able to just begin to turn. And I think this shift from the evil ones, the evil ones are only an other that we hate and destroy. We just want to blow up the Death Star. We want Darth Vader to die. Like, we just want to erase evil from the world. You can watch in the writing, for example, so you get to the great massive burst of where instead of being nerdy comics that only weird, little white boys read and growing up in the 1980s and 60s, 70s, whatever, to them dominating the film world now with the whole Marvel universe and all that stuff. Every character now, you watch like the modern Superman, and they're like, he's this like existentially angsted,
yeah,
he's got shadows. He's wrestling with the burden of his gifts. He's like, you meet a soul who's struggling with the shadows and darknesses and
yeah,
evil and
yeah,
isn't pure good.
right.
And this similarly, like, for example, Game of Thrones,
Phew, perfect,
right?
perfect.
Where you think, oh, we're gonna have this heroine, she's gonna be the good one, right? The dragon princess queen.
Yeah,
She's going to restore the world order and lift up, provide justice and lift up the downtrodden. And by the end, it's just scorched earth. There's so much anger and hatred in her for all the ones who've wounded. She just wants to burn them from the planet.
and she does.
And she does.
And she
She
does, and
crosses over the line.
right?
But
And
it's
that
this is a karmic law. There's a certain force seeking to be purely good leads me into evil.
beautiful.
What is that, dude? So you've described that as the over identification. What's going on there?
Well, that's such a good question. I was gonna give you a question, but that
Sorry, yeah, right.
but that's a great question, and, maybe we should just touch on that. Um, because from how I can see it, it used to be that goodness, purity, holiness, it was lawful, you could say, in the past, in the ancient mysteries, that you had to separate yourself out, purify yourself classically from all evil to maintain a kind of innocent purity. But now, like you're describing, that's not, it's clearly not the case. We have all kinds of super idealistic people that turn out to be monsters. I mean, even Hitler was thinking he was doing the good and turned out to be a monster. And I think that's because the shift that took place at the turning point of time, or when Golgotha happened, when Calvary happened,
Mm,
the death and the resurrection of Christ, he took upon himself the darkness. Not so that he could be bad or dirty, but
mm,
so that he could, you could say, compost it.
mm.
He could transmute it into gradually into medicine. And I think that new picture changed the world.
Mm.
Really.
Yeah.
It changed the nature of how holiness is.
So good,
So
right? Oh, so go ahead. Go
just
ahead.
one more thing. So
Yeah.
holiness normally we think is just not related to evil at all, but even in our sacrament at the altar, holiness is a new integration and redemption of the darkness. That the darkness is used to become more loving and sacrificial,
And
and thereby
humble,
and humble, and thereby it's redeemed in and through that.
right? Because the pure ones down here, if I'm over identifying in, I'm only going to be good. What happened? I know this for myself too, because, there were a lot of bad things I didn't do. Right. So I could easily be like the son who stayed home and just sees the other brother going and doing all those wild and crazy things that are clearly like destructive. But what grows in my soul through that consciousness, through a consciousness that is only thinking I am and to be good. I'm only to be good. And I am only good. Dark things rise up. Arrogance does nothing to do with God. Condemning, judgmental. And you see this in Christianity over and over and over again, that longs to be connected to the good. Of course. Of course. Like the one we serve is the good in the world. And he says, let me live in you so that the good can happen. But we aren't watching like what is his good?
Yeah.
How does God's goodness work with evil? This is our question for this series, Facing Evil. And you see, from the very beginning, it was about be honest. Be honest with yourself. Check yourself. Repent, meaning practice self-examination and look for the places where you are not emanating love, truth, and beauty and goodness, where the virtues aren't just pouring out of your being, patience, and so forth. But instead, look very closely at how you are not yet like God, not yet fulfilling Michael's question, the Archangel Michael's question, who is like God? You're to come towards him into his light and say, like, I am not yet like God. I need the God of my humanity. I need Christ Jesus. So it's an ever, right? It's just it's a life in renewing that honesty over and over again in order actually not to fall prey to the darknesses that will otherwise take root because I don't see them
Yeah.
work in me.
Yeah. And another element that's so beautiful that you also mentioned, you mentioned the Game of Thrones, which has this evolution of a monster through starting out as wanting to be good. The actual hero, Jon Snow, has to go through a death and resurrection. The good isn't his possession or his identity. He actually has to receive it from something that lifts him up. And I think that's also shown in Christ's picture. He doesn't just come down and manifest the good. He doesn't just fix everything. He actually has to go through a powerlessness and a raising up that overcomes. And that relationship with our darkness is that they're also there to bring us into a kind of death and resurrection where the good becomes a gift. We see that in chapter 11 of the book of Revelation, where the two witnesses have to go through death and then are breathed in by God
Receive new life from his breath.
to receive new life. I think this is also another secret of our eye. We don't produce the good. It is a gift through death and resurrection. Yeah,
That's a big theme.
that's
That's
a
a big
big
theme
theme
right
too.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, we haven't even gotten to the question you wanted to ask.
exactly. So, okay. So what I did want to ask you today is, you know, as we kind of carry this sickness of the eye and protection in God, and how that can start to be illuminated by these pictures of the gospel of the book of Revelation. The next step, at least as the book of Revelation is leading us through, the next picture, actually, the dragon kind of goes into the background a little bit, and there's a new picture that describes the beast. Of course, we heard about the beast in chapter 11 a little bit, but then uh, right after we hear that the protection of the offspring is those who keep God's commandment and bear witness to Jesus, then we have this new beast image. And I just wonder if we can bring the beast in now. How does the beast, Patrick, how can we enter into this picture of the beast in light of this protection and this self that we're trying to cultivate in Christ?
Yeah, it's a super powerful question. It's probably good just to read maybe this first description, because I think so much is just so clear there for certainly from the biblical theology question. So the picture language of the Bible, and its overarching spiritual anthropology, understanding of the human being. So verse 1 says, "And I saw a beast rising out of the sea." Already we have a different origin story. You have this dragon in the skies, in the sky world, so up above. Now you have a place in the depths,
Oh.
something rising out of the depths with 10 horns and 7 heads. The new element there, of course, are the horns.
Okay, yeah.
Big, big thing to wonder about. With 10 diadems on its horns, so that its crowns are on the horns. So fascinating. And blasphemous names on its heads. So just really, these are things to meditate on, of course, deeply, these
Mm,
differences. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth.
mm.
So leopard, bear, lion. The body of a leopard, the feet of a bear, the mouth of a lion. And I feel like for me, that's like a first place to pause and look
Okay.
a little. I'm very excited also because I know you've thought about these things too. But one of the things that we can share great joy in recommending is the Bible Project,
Mm.
the work of Tim Mackey and his partner, John. What's his last name? John.
Oh, what is his last name? I always just hear John.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes
John.
he says his last name.
I forget.
So they have a podcast um, for the Bible Project, and they make a lot of videos trying to understand the Bible. And they also offer really good courses for free, which I can only recommend. And everything for Tim Mackey, grows from the seed of the first chapters of Genesis 1 through 4. And I remember after having done the course myself, and really meditated on these texts deeply and carefully, just tracking them. And as I deeply meditated on them, my mind was just being blown. I couldn't believe what was all actually just right there that I had never seen before. That was such a clear composition of the mystery of who we are, of the world and everything. And everything that is then expanded and growing in its magnitude in the book of Revelation is there in the seed form in Genesis.
Yeah.
For example, what we meet when the human is drawn to knowledge, drawn to the tree of knowledge, they meet a serpent. It's not a dragon with 7 heads. It's a related being, as the chapter 12 said. It's the serpent, it's the ancient serpent. But it's like matured to its full stature in the course of Earth evolution. So a wise serpent, an intelligent serpent is there. And then they did a whole kind of focused theme, the Bible Project did, on evil. And they just called everything a dragon. It was all dragons and all serpents. The chaos dragon. So like everything was a dragon.
Okay.
It was so interesting. And if you just look at how clear it is in this chapter 12 and 13, that we're talking about two totally different creatures. One who is up in the heavenly world and cast down, and one who is down in the depths of the sea and rises up. That's already massively different. The second big difference is the snake character, the scaly, windy snake character is the animal vision, the astral vision of this being. And the other being has this what do we call them? Like these hunter beasts,
Mm.
the ones who stalk their prey, and with their claws, their speed, and their mouth. So they use their power to capture and devour. So back in the book of Genesis, this being is revealed.
Mm.
And when our dear Tim Mackey went over this, he just calls it the snake. It's just it's stunning.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
but Tim, just look a little close because he usually is so careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is my one little nitpicking because with our brother Tim Mackey, because he misses something that unlocks something so important. And that is in the story of Cain and Abel. The story of Cain and Abel, these two children born, the first humans born outside of paradise.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first humans born of reproduction. So sexual union leads to these children. Very, very significant. So outside of they're in the earthly world. They're not in the upper paradisical world. They're in a lower world. And in that earthly world, that's where they have their birth. And their story begins by making a sacrifice.
Uh,
Both Cain and Abel bring an offering to God. So they have an altar and they're bringing a sacrifice. They're not coming seeking knowledge. They're doing something. And one has shepherded sheep and offer or a flock and offered one of his animals. That's Abel. And Cain has cultivated the ground and brought the fruits of his labor, what he himself has grown on the earth. And God has regard for Abel's offering, but he doesn't turn his face towards Cain's. And this incredible drama unfolds where Cain just this anger and resentment and envy rises up in Cain. This reaction. He's over-identified himself with his gift. He wasn't really giving it. He was giving it so that it would be chosen, so that, right? He's totally, it actually increases his egotism. But now through a deed, not through knowledge, you could know good and evil and be like God. That's the promise of the serpent. Here, he's increasing his sense of egotism because he's over-identified with his gift and his work. And the picture is just so beautiful, the way Yahweh Elohim approaches Cain and just tries to give him guidance, doesn't make him do anything. But he says, why are you so upset? If you do the good thing, will it not be received? So I'm letting you know, because it wasn't received, the universe is letting you know it wasn't time for that. That wasn't the right gift right now. Right? Like a healthy ego would go, okay, I clearly have to adjust me. I have to figure out what is it that would be the gift I could offer that would currently be able to harmoniously participate in the world and bless. That's my issue. It's not the world's issue.
in the sense, you're not then over-identified
I don't
with your gift, and you're not have such a powerful egotism that you think it should all serve
be
you.
how I think it should be.
Yeah.
He clearly my work and as a worker, as a sacrificer, is to try to see what can bless the world. What can be a gift to God and what is the right gift? I can get it wrong, that's possible. And then I look over and I see, oh, his was received. And this comparison, that's the next thing, right? The ego comparing itself to another, seeing how he's elevated because his gift was received. These are so powerful, these forces.
I always like to say comparing is the doorway to despairing.
Mm. And in this story, it's the doorway for something called sin. So the name by God speaks to Cain and says, sin is crouching at the door in the Hebrew. Crouching. Snakes don't crouch.
They don't have haunches.
They don't have legs and that's not their style. They slither. So there's a being and its desire is for you, or it desires to have you. So there's this hunter, and he wants to inhabit Cain. And Cain hears the advice, but he can't. And God says, and you must become the Lord over this beast. You must master it. So there's this beast crouching. There's a crouching. Sin is crouching at the door, at the doorway where you made this offering. Sin is crouching there, and its desire is for you. It desires to have you, and you must master it. You must become the Lord over the beasts. That's chapter 1 in the book of
Right.
Genesis. And what happens? He deceives his brother, his innocent brother, again, an innocent Abel. Hey, let's go out to the field. Come out to the field with me, Abel. And he murders him. He buries him. And his blood flows into the earth. To elevate himself, he destroyed his brother. And then God goes, where's your brother? And then he lies.
Mm.
Well, he doesn't say, I don't know. He instead kind of rebuffs it with a kind of reactive question, deflection. What am I, my brother's shepherd,
Mhm.
my brother's keeper? So for me, this story of the rising of the beast out of the depths, this leopard, bear, lion creature, for me, and the horns also, horns in terms of power, spiritual power, the emphasis of his crowns being on his horns. All of this for me is revealing this other danger. The danger of wisdom is in the serpent, and the danger of power, might, and strength is in the beast. So the ego that goes over identifies into its power and strength and wants, and then is the temptation is domination. I will come to my true glory, to my greatness through dominance. Yeah. So that for me is like my first thing.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. So I love that kind of synopsis where there's two dangers. The dragon is kind of linked in with the sickness of the eye to make it think that it its holiness, its glory is all powerful, so to speak, and it will tempt us into self-righteousness. And then the beast has a different aspect, comes from the bottom and has this hunter might that is so tempting for the self that thinks if we just dominate, control, have power over, we will be safe.
And all means are on the table by any means necessary. You know, the wolf of Wall Street, right? This beast, like whatever, it doesn't matter. How do I get to the top? How do I have it? It's not that I need to be. People don't understand. It's like, well, when is enough enough? Like, why isn't he just happy with like 100 million? You know, whatever. It's the actual ego experience of taking it all
Yeah.
and winning and
And
winning and
winning.
winning and winning and winning and dominating, king of the hill.
Yeah. I find that interesting because I was I was listening to this one kind of hedge fund manager on YouTube, and he said someone asked him why do you like this work? What's interesting to you about it? Uh, do you really love the money and all of that and all the he said, "You know what? I could care less about money." And he's like a billionaire.
Right,
So
right.
I don't care about money. It's not even interesting to me. What I care about is winning. I love the experience of, you know, orchestrating something so that I get what I have set out for, a hunter.
Yeah.
And, you know, that for sure exists as an impulse in all of us. And we can over identify with that, which is very different than the lamb image that will come
That's it.
later.
That's it.
The lamb image is a counterbalance to the beast image. The lamb that says, I'm going to offer, kind of like Abel, but now consciously. And and with knowledge, I'm going to offer myself as a free gift, even through death, for the life of the world, without and overcome this idea, this impulse to dominate and possess.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can see both the all so the image in chapter 12 of the true child, so we have a child image, right, that's opposed to the dragon. That's interesting, right?
Mm.
That's the image, that's the counter image. But both the dragon and the child are destined, or the child is destined to rule. It's the one who's truly supposed to be ruling. And the dragon desires to rule and has its crown. So there's this theme of kingship. Again, just the the ego, and this is also in Genesis, there's something about the nature of the ego is it is a ruler. And it's not that we should have no kings, it's just what kind of king?
Beautiful.
And who is the true king of the kings?
Yeah.
And so we have here again a, 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 a being who has crowns and wants to rule, but the path to rulership is this hunter, devourer, dominator, king of the jungle, king
Right.
of the jungle.
I'm going to take my power. And if anything harms me, I'm going to get better armor and bigger guns. I think I'm also uh, drawn to this further sentence here, where the beast, where it says in verse 3, I saw that one of its heads seemed to have had a fatal wound, but that this deadly injury had healed over. And after that, the whole world marveled and followed the beast.
Yeah.
So that's and that description of a fatal wound that heals over is constantly always described with the beast, which is a counter image to the lamb who has a fatal wound, but this wound is pouring out its blood for the life of the world. And even Rudolf Steiner in one of his lectures says this double image is a kind of double-edged sword that shows the two possibilities of the ego.
Mm.
I'm fully able to become a self that receives a death wound, but then decides, no, I'm getting bigger guns and better armor so that I can dominate next time.
Mm.
I'm not going to go through death and resurrection and be lifted by something greater than myself, offering my life for the life of the world. That's the lamb picture that the ego is also destined to become, depending on what we worship. And I think that's also a powerful aspect of working with the beast, that it has this, again, connected to the protection that we talked about with,
That's it. I think so, right? It's a theme of protection for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
right? Like that you mentioned, where do you love your life more than something greater? And the lamb's picture, which is an archetype of what the ego can become, is I'm actually offering myself for something greater, for humanity, even through death.
You could say the last impossibly powerful grip of the ego is the grip on itself. And the reason we're grabbing onto all these other things is because we're still just trying to hold on to ourselves. How do I sustain my existence? And so the moment then an ego gets to the actual achievement of saying, I'm going to do this thing for another, even if it means I actually am going to lose all grip on myself.
There you
I'm
go.
no longer going to have that last grip. I'm going to let it go. The surprise is that that act is the gesture of the divine self that cannot be killed.
That cannot
You
be
could, or
killed.
you could say that rises after death. That's different. That rises after it dies.
Right? Eh, I think that's so key. And the rising is both my participating, but also something greater lifting me.
Yeah. Because
So
it's not,
that
I've no grip anymore. And so the
yes,
divine self is now the power I'm feeling lifting me, and I feel it's a gift because I let go. I actually no longer, and in that, but it's the highest action I can do. It's a total deed of myself,
yeah,
the highest possible self overcoming. And in that moment, I'm also utterly powerless because I've let go of all attempt to control and dominate. And so then I feel any life after that is grace and gift. Any life after that is grace.
it's grace. And then what does that produce? But it starts to transform and heal this egotism that Lucifer gave us
Yeah.
because I didn't accomplish anything on my own.
Or I accomplished the greatest deed I could do, which was to let go of all my attempts to be the great accomplisher. Like I step over
Yeah.
myself.
And and then in gratitude for that grace, which
Yes.
arrogance, which always leads to true humility,
True
because
humility.
there's something else also greater than me that I'm participating with, but it's also giving me life. And I can't feel that's all me. It's just not possible.
It's just, I can't help coming back to it again and again. The absolutely hardest thing to do, the greatest accomplishment of the human being, of the human self, is self-overcoming. And the self that emerges after that greatest accomplishment feels that their life is a gift of grace. That again, and that's where you see the genius of how can the self who has the sickness that you described, if the ego has gotten sick, what chance do we have? The only chance is to become a lamb self. And the beast and the dragon are going to do everything they can to show us, no, 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 you don't want to go that way. Are you kidding me? Look, I also was mortally attacked. So there's a wound that happens to me that is mortal, which means it has death. It could kill me,
Yes.
and it should kill me. But you see, it got healed. Everybody look, meaning it didn't change. So the difference between a fake death and resurrection and a real death and resurrection.
Good. I love this because there's a fascination with a kind of strength that I didn't change. I stuck with it. I won. I didn't have to. Stood firm. There's a shadow aspect to that the beast demonstrates, and that's why everyone in the world is in awe. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Look,
That's
we could
strength.
overcome death. Look.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. It's like, and that's actually in the Game of Thrones, which is so disturbing. Both there are a couple of people who had this power that when they are killed, they come back to life. And it happens also, as you know, to Jon Snow. But during their death, they experienced nothing.
Mm.
And when they come back, they're not changed.
Oh, that's a very good point.
They're not changed. They're in the exact same body. They just wake back up. And there's something so dark about that. About it's like to go through death and not be changed. just heal up
Heal up.
the wound. Look, I'm back.
I think this is really key to talking about the nature of the self, because both the beast and the lamb are pictures of ourself. And what's interesting is we all must receive a wound,
Mm.
a death wound,
Yeah, it's like the special earth gift.
special earth gift. But it's how we go through that makes all the difference. If we just wake back up and are not changed, or if we have an illness that we're just cured and there's no transformation of heart and soul, it's not good.
That's awesome, Jonah. Just to meditate on that idea. What am I here on earth to experience and do? You're revealing to us the picture. I am here to receive the mortal wound.
Mortal wound. We are here, ourself is destined to receive the mortal wound. And if we go through it in a way that metanoia can occur, transformation can occur, then we become true human beings. And if we go through it in a way that just gets it back to what it was, something dies in our humanity.
Something dies in our humanity. Yeah.
Beautiful, Patrick. Well, I'm so glad we took another step.
Yes.
Thank you for leading us into the mysteries of the beast. And I look forward to next week.
Can't wait. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.